I'm not a morning person.
Dedicated to being passionate about it.
Bodybuilders have become more lazy.
People have always thought I lift fake weights.
Iran and the United States.
You take responsibility for that.
Hey George, how are you, man?
Good. How you doing, Vlad?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
How you been? Everything okay?
Yeah, everything's all right. You know, just getting this off season rolling, and getting ready for this Olympia coming up.
Nice. I like your hoodie, man. It's nice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Red Count One all day, baby.
I was looking forward to this interview, man, because we never really done one before, so I have a lot of things to ask you, man.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
First of all, how you been? How's 2020 for you, and how's this year been going so far?
Well, 2020 was definitely hectic because that's when the whole pandemic started, and we had the lockdown. And during that time, I was getting ready for the 2020 Tampa Pro, where I won, and that's how I qualified for the 2020 Olympia in the 212 division. But it was just a very, very hard time to find a decent place to train, to get ready for that show, but I got through it, and it was a good year. It ended up being a good year.
Babs was shut down. This is your home gym, right, Babs?
Absolutely. Yep. Babs was shut down for 5 months,
So you had to find like a new gym, or where were you training?
Well, I originally started like just working out at home, doing what I could, but that wasn't enough to really get ready for a show, as we all know. So I ended up finding a friend who had a little private facility that would just let me get my workouts in, and then that's how I pretty much prepped for the show.
And before that, you were like you mentioned at home. Like, what were you doing at home? Just like bands and like push-ups?
Doing a little bit of bands. I have a few dumbbells, but they're not that heavy, so I was doing a lot of time under tension training to try to, compensate for not having the heavy weights, but it's only good to a certain point.
Now this 2020 was your debut in a 212, correct?
That's correct.
So I want to kind of tell me how you got into bodybuilding originally, because I know you came in as a classic physique competitor, right? So talk about like how you got interested in bodybuilding and how you got into classic physique.
That's a good question. Well, how I got into bodybuilding was actually through martial arts, because before bodybuilding, I was heavy into the martial arts. I have a black belt in Shotokan karate. Bruce Lee is my inspiration, and researching him, I read up that he started lifting weights to get better with his techniques, to get stronger with his punches and kicks. So I started doing the same thing for myself, and I joined the gym. And when I started working out with weights, I noticed my body was starting to change, very quickly. And somebody at the gym saw me I was wearing a tank top one day, and he was like, "Hey, do you compete?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "You should." And he's like, "'Cause I see you have good genetics." So I was like, "Okay, that interests me." So through him, I got into bodybuilding and did my first show, and I fell in love with it instantly, and that's how I got into bodybuilding. And I didn't start as in classic physique in bodybuilding. Like, I started actually as a bodybuilder, because I started competing in 2008. And at that time, there was no classic physique. It was all bodybuilding. And I was a middleweight bodybuilder at first. Then I went to a light heavyweight bodybuilder, and then I was a heavyweight bodybuilder. And that's where it kind of went downhill for me. I didn't like the way my physique was looking because I was trying to get big so fast. I feel like I was losing my aesthetics. And then at 2013, I said, you know what? That's it. I want to call it quits. I don't want to do this anymore. I feel like maybe it's not for me. I was essentially retired for 3 years. And then that's when Classic Physique came out in 2016. I saw that. I was like, I mean, I didn't really know what they were really looking for when I saw it, but this is interesting. And what intrigued me about it really the most was the fact that I saw that I had to come down in weight in order to do that. And I always felt like maybe if I would have stayed a light heavyweight bodybuilder than going to heavyweight bodybuilder, I would have been more successful back in 2013. So that's pretty much how I got into Classic.
Mm-hmm. So Bruce Lee you were a fan of Bruce Lee growing up?
Oh, major fan. I have all his movies. I was reading, I read his book. I wanted to be just like Bruce Lee. He was a huge inspiration for me.
That was a movie that came out a couple of years ago called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't know if you saw it or heard about it.
I heard about it. I didn't actually
see it in a very weird light, and I heard people complaining about that. Have you heard about it?
I heard that. I heard it because that's directed by Quentin Tarantino, right? Yeah, I heard that. I didn't actually see it, but I did hear that a lot of people didn't like the way Bruce Lee was portrayed in the movie. I mean, yeah, very strange. I wonder what they did. I mean, I'm interested to see it, to see what the issue is. But I did hear it got some backlash though.
It made him look like he was just an asshole on set, and also like he basically gets beat up by a bodyguard. Like it was very, very weird. You know what I'm saying? It was strange.
Yeah, that is very strange, but I don't know.
But I mean, he was an inspiration to pretty much a lot of people.
Everybody. Yeah, I mean, like Bruce Lee was the first time I saw an actual lat spread. I don't know if you remember in the movie. I believe it was Return of the Dragon, and he's doing his kata and he spreads his lats. Like that was the first time I saw a lat spread, and and it was like wow. When I first saw it, I was like, what is? How did he do that? What is that? And then when I saw bodybuilders actually doing it, I was like, oh, this is what Bruce Lee was doing.
Now, in 2016, you won NPC Nationals, right? Which is the biggest competition for amateurs, right? And you won the overall.
That is correct. That is correct. Yep.
That's an amazing achievement, like winning the overall in that. Because there was there was a lot of competitors going to that every year.
At that time, it was over 110 competitors at that time. Yeah, and that was just such an amazing feeling because for me to come out of retirement for the past 3 years and then come right back and then boom, I'm a national champion, overall national champion. It was just a surreal feeling, and I was on cloud 9 for a long time after that.
Yeah, and then your career started like you became part of everybody's conversation. You won Arnold Classic relatively fast. You know what I mean? Like you were the guy.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. Like that's how I know that it was my destiny to go this route because, like I said, I walked away from the sport in 2013. I was done. I had no kind of desire to compete again anymore at that time, and it was just through circumstance that I ended up meeting my now coach Justin Miller because I didn't want to do a show. My partner who I still worked out with, he wanted to do a show, and so he wanted Justin to help him, and I was just going with him to meet Justin just to support him. It had nothing to do with me. And, just meeting Justin and we just started talking. And then all of a sudden I got thrown into the conversation about competing. And then, and then I talked about Classic Physique. And then, we just said, okay, you know what, let's do it. And I didn't even care about if I placed well or if I placed low. I just wanted to look good. I said, Justin, just make sure I look good, and I went for it. And then boom, won the overall at the Eastern USA in 2016. And 2 weeks later, won the Nationals overall in Miami. So it was just amazing.
You won the Arnold Classic, and then the first Olympia ever, you were third place.
Yep.
You doing incredible. So what's the real reason why switching over to 12? Because I saw a video where you kind of complaining, people saying you're becoming too muscular. Was that the reason? Like you were just outgrowing it or something? Like was the real reason why you went to the 212?
Well, I mean, outgrowing it is one of the reasons, because I would pretty much have to, it got to a point where I would have to pretty much cut like at least 10 pounds of muscle in order to make the weight for Classic. My last year in Classic, I had to make a weight of 192. And, I would be, pretty much contest ready, like around 208, 209. So I would have to cut, at least 10 pounds of muscle in order to make that weight of 192. And so that was one thing. And, and another thing was that like that my last year in Classic, I feel it was my best look to date as a Classic Physique competitor. Like there was absolutely nothing more I could have done with that weight that I was given at 192. And, and I still got third. So since like there's literally like nothing more, nowhere else to go with this weight, it was the right move to jump to the 212. And that's how I came to that decision.
Mm-hmm. So was it a difficult decision? Because I mean, did you have, because 212 essentially is like men's open, just a little bit lower weight, you know what I mean?
Right.
But ultimately you went from the Classic to the Ultimate, you know what I mean? Was that an easy decision? It
was a little difficult. It took a little while to really say to myself, okay, let's do it. It's funny, like the decision was actually made right after the 2019 Mr. Olympia. Me, my coach, and a few of my friends, we was hanging out in the Airbnb, and we was just sitting in the backyard, just talking. And we was talking about just everything, going over everything, replaying everything in our minds and everything like that. And the reason why it was originally a hard decision for me, because I was passionate about Classic Physique. I was really about passion. And even though there was so many people that was out there saying, oh, I'm not Classic, I don't have a Classic Physique because I don't look like Frank Zane or whoever else. I didn't believe that. I didn't believe that because I felt like there was different versions of classic physique. Like you have a Frank Zane type of classic physique, you have an Arnold Schwarzenegger classic physique. I feel like you also have a Flex Wheeler type of classic physique, a Sean Ray type classic physique. All these physiques are under the umbrella of classic physique. But they all look different. So I felt like, okay, well, just because I may have the most muscle maybe in the classic physique, that doesn't mean I'm not classic. I still have the small waist, nice shape, tiny joints, round muscle bellies. I mean, that's classic. But I mean, so the fact that I was so passionate about wanting to do classic and showing that I am classic, that was one of the reasons why it was hard. But you know what? I was just, talking it over with my coach, Justin, it was like, you know what? We showed that I could be the best George Peterson classic physique competitor, I can be. Now it's time to let's be the best George Peterson competitor, period, that I could be. And the only way for us to do that is for us to move to 212 where we can have more weight and keep the muscle. So I was like, you know what, let's do it. 212 it is. And then that's when we came to that decision right after the 2019 Mr. Olympia.